This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk with Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young on ESPN Radio 94.1.
And we are back here on this 11th day of September, the year 2021, 20 years from the tragedy of 9/11 here at Waterside Live in Norfolk. We have the doors open. Come on out. We've got lots of college football coming up. In fact, one game already underway with UVA up on Illinois 7-0. A lot of food, a lot of prizes, giveaways. We're here until 2 o'clock, the show until 12 noon with the Coach Ed Young. I am Matt Hatfield, and at this time we're joined by a special guest. He does a lot of high school football coverage for us at VirginiaPreps.com. He's been covering Old Dominion, I think, for the last few years as well. Their football season home opener is today at SB Ballard Stadium. You can catch all the Monarchs games right here on your home for ODU football, ESPN Radio 94.1. Trying to get their first home victory in 752 days as they are 19-point favorites today. The Monarchs taking on the Pirates of HU. Reese Becker with us now. Reese, good to see you. How you been?
I'm great. How about you?
Not too bad. We'll get to the ODU matchup and the Monarchs in general here in a moment, but you saw a pretty intense game last night on the high school football scene with Green Run and Kempsville as the Stallions got another victory over an improving Chiefs team.
Yeah, really a case of Kempsville shooting himself in the foot over and over again. 4 turnovers. Late penalties all game long for both teams, really, but Kempsville having 2 players ejected, 2 pretty big players for him.
Ooh. Yeah, and that could affect him for the game moving forward. But I tell you what, you got to see them last week as well. Jalen White, who had 5 sacks in that game, who's going to Old Dominion, so the Monarchs fans should be excited about him, as well as Ethan Vasco, the quarterback from Oscar Smith, the Marion Granger from Maury, as Ricky Ronnie and staff are getting some local recruits. And I'm sure there's some guys on the Green Run squad that they might be looking at as well because they got a lot of talent on that team.
Oh, yeah, there are, Keelan Adams, 20.24 wide receiver, Tayshawn Young-Steve, maybe even Xavier Davis.
Yeah, a lot of, from what you've seen, and I hate to put you on the spot with best team because you saw Phoebus the night before, anybody jump out at you as either head and shoulders the best team or head and shoulders the best player through an early portion of the season? Granted, there's still a lot of football to be played, but anybody kind of really wow you thus far?
In person, Jalen White. Yeah, 2 more sacks last night. I think 3 or 4 tackles for loss, but, best team's Oscar Smith.
Yeah, I think people are going to not argue with you on that one.
No.
They'll get a big test, though, on Friday with that team from California coming to town, as that'll be a mighty, huge showdown there.
Is that John Bosco?
St. John Bosco Prep of California, where DJ Uiagalelei, the Clemson quarterback, once played.
They were on TV last night.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
John Bosco was, yep.
Yeah, they're going straight from that game to Virginia.
Probably flying out now or early in the week.
Could be.
These are high school kids.
Wow. High school kids. So let's turn the attention now to the Monarchs here, coming off the loss to Wake Forest. We said last week on the show, Reese, and I know you weren't there, you were covering a high school game, but you certainly have followed this team very closely, that I think there were some pluses to take away from the loss. Specifically, they ran the ball fairly effectively, Lala Davis and company, and I thought their line play, it's something that Coach harped on. He thought that, a couple years ago, that might have been a 6, 7, 8 sacks allowed performance. They kind of were clean there, and we'll get to some things that might concern them moving forward, whether it be today or beyond this game against Hampton. But what were the things that you thought were encouraging, despite it being a lopsided loss to an ACC team?
That defensive line was going to be a hole coming into the year. Not a hole now. You got Chaz Wallace there. You got some young kids there. Offensive line with all the transfers, they're loaded up there. And then, the running game wasn't too bad against the ACC team, so they should fare better today against a, FCS team. But I think quarterback play needs to improve.
It's kind of interesting. Sort of like ODU going into the Wake Forest game, there was a lot of mystery and uncertainty about them. What do we know about Hampton? There's a lot of mystery and uncertainty about them as well. They're an FCS team, and they come into this one as a big underdog. Not quite the margin in terms of the point spread at Old Dominion, but nobody really giving them much of a chance to win this game. What do we know about Hampton and how they stack up with ODU?
They had over 600 yards offense last week, over 300 on the ground, so, ground games can be good for them. Ramon Copeland, from Oscar Smith, he's going to play a big part. I don't know what they're going to do passing-wise because I didn't watch that game. I haven't seen the film. But running's going to be a big for them. I don't know how much success they're going to have against the defensive line and the good linebackers, but it should be a pretty good game for ODU stat-wise.
Ed?
Reese, I had mentioned last week that, Old Dominion's getting it back together off a whole year. New head coach coming in from Penn State, a very traditional powerhouse team that struggled a little bit in the last year or so. I just thought opening up against a good Wake Forest, not that Wake Forest is a power, would be a little bit too much for them. Listening to you kind of solidifies what I said. They look good in a lot of spots. just don't have the overall experience that Wake Forest has. Wake Forest got up on them, was able to do what they do to come back. Had they opened up against, let's say, Hampton, I probably shouldn't use that, or anybody else less, in your minds, based on what you saw, that's a win?
Yeah, they're still 2 years off. There were some decisions at cornerback that I don't know if I would have made.
Okay.
Starting certain guys, but I think they would have, if they have opened up against a Sun Belt team or an FCS team, it would have looked a lot better.
Some, like I mentioned, a lot of teams will open up against weaker teams on purpose. Some coaches want to open up against a strong team on purpose. Me personally, no matter what sport I coach, I'd want to have somebody that either I can compete fairly well with or I'm pretty sure I'm going to beat, because it's so important to get that first win to justify all the hard work you're putting in. It does work. Sometimes you play somebody really, really strong and you're trying to say to the players, well, look, this team is ready to win it all. They're going to be a champion contender. If we can go in there and beat them, just how good we are. Okay, if we can. But if we go in there and get crushed, then there could be some doubt. Now week 2 is a little harder. You might have got a couple injuries along the way. Makes it a little tougher. But again, it's all everybody's preference on how you open up and who you want to open up with.
Well, Ed, that's really the difference between college and high school. Is college, this game was set 5-6 years ago. It has to be this, or you're going to have a cancellation fee of, I think it was $1 million. So it's a double-edged sword. You can schedule these games 10 years out.
And it's a great point by you, because college football does that. And somebody like Old Dominion, who is striving for notoriety, especially nationally, you have a chance to open against Wake Forest. It's the only time you can do it. Mm-hmm. They're going to jump at that, no matter what their feeling is here, because they're playing a well-known team in a very strong conference. It's the only time we can play them. Let's go do it. Whereas a lot of other people could pick and choose and say, we don't really need to play them right now. We're going to look for somebody else. I don't think Old Dominion is at that point, because one thing about Old Dominion, ever since they have moved up, they have said pretty much they would play anybody, anywhere, anytime. They're not going to back down from anybody, which is good, but you also have to understand what do you have in the cupboard. Of course, that was under a previous coaching regime too, and now that they have the new coach in place. But I'm sure he's the same way because of his background.
I don't want to harp on it, but last season they were supposed to open at Wake Forest at home. That's a drastically different game than it was last weekend.
Right.
Obviously you don't have the year off, you don't have all those things hanging over you. But I think if they opened last year at Wake Forest, they might have beaten them.
Okay.
Talking with Reese Becker. He covers high school sports for us at VirginiaPreps.com, and also you can read his work when it comes to ODU Monarchs at DullasDistrict.com. Follow him on Twitter at Reese, R-E-E-S-E, Becker, B-E-C-K-E-R. It's 757 Saturday Sports Talk here live from Waterside, live in Norfolk on ESPN Radio 94.1, where you'll hear the coverage with Ted Alexander, Andy Michaud, and the crew from SB Ballard Stadium in Norfolk with the Monarchs and Hampton University later on today here on ESPN Radio 94.1. And you mentioned potential spots that could be, question marks, concerns, uncertainty. You hit on the secondary, and right now the two deep is shown at the moment. Trey Hawkins III and Roger Cray as the corners. JoJo Heaton, Robert Kennedy III as a safety. We do see a couple local guys on the second part, the backups in the secondary, specifically the likes of Lamarion James. We played his interview with you a couple weeks back from Indian River High School in Chesapeake. The freshman and redshirt sophomore Damian Charity from Phoebus. Is that the spot you're most intrigued to see today, or is there another position unit beat on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, or perhaps even special teams in this matchup with the Pirates of HU?
Well, I went back and watched the game yesterday, actually, from last week, and one of the cornerbacks was very solid, hard hitting, gets after it. One of them didn't look like he wanted to hit, and I think that's the spot you need to fix. Okay. But quarterback also, I don't know if DJ was just overwhelmed last week or if he'll get it right again this week. But I think if he comes out and doesn't get it right again, you got to look at Hayden Wolf.
Really? So you think that change could be made in game, or would it be something perhaps after game?
I don't know if he wants to make it in game,
okay,
but I think it'll be after game. But you got to see how DJ does today, because you can't have 2 turnovers and only 39 yards again.
Ed, as a coach, philosophy with that, I know you didn't love it, but obviously if the struggles happen against an FCS opponent in state where you're expected to win, you can't let that linger too long if he does not come out and perform at a high clip.
Football's a little different animal, and especially how they mess with their quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. If you notice, a lot of times they go with the first stringer. He takes most of all the reps in practice all week long. Even get up 20, 25, 30 in a game and still play. Pros are very good at that, and pretty much college. Where me, I'm not doing that. I'm going to have somebody else ready, especially at that position. It's such a critical position. I've got to have a second guy somewhat ready. Now, it's probably, unless you're Alabama, it's probably not somebody as good because you don't have that luxury of having two great quarterbacks. But a lot of teams, and this might be Old Dominion, you would know Reese better than I would. They might have a couple guys that are very similar, or one does something better than the other, but he does something better than the other. So coach can go with either guy. Sometimes you'll see rotation, that they work at it in practice and it causes the opponent's craziness because maybe one's a drop back thrower and the other one is a runner. Of course, now you're going to have your other schemes. Your line has to be ready for all that. But if you worked at it in practice, you should be able to do it in the game. We had talked earlier about one of our overs and unders was we thought Mac would throw 3 touchdown passes today. I said he would, but I did say, is he start number 1? And if he has a bad game, is he coming out? Will the coach say, look, I don't want to hurt his confidence, but we need to win this game. I'm going to go with so-and-so. Most of the time, I agree with you. Coaches will write out that guy in that game and then make the changes in practice because you don't want to kill a kid's confidence or spirit, especially if you feel you're going to have to go back to him later.
Yeah, and during summer and during fall, all 3 of those guys got first-team reps. It wasn't one guy getting all of them, and that's what really the mystery was because you couldn't tell anything in practice. I think if they get down to Hampton tonight by 2 touchdowns early, you see DJ come out. But DJ's more athletic, Hayden's a more drop-back passer, and you have Stone Smart who's starting at wide receiver who's really kind of a mix of both. But ODU fans saw what he can do 2 years ago, and I don't think they were impressed.
Well, and interestingly enough, I think this also goes to a game that took place on Labor Day or day before Labor Day, rather, with Florida State Notre Dame. Another Central Florida transfer like DJ Mack, Mackenzie Milton comes in, lights it up, and now everybody's asking Coach Norvell at FSU, you going with Jordan Travis or Mackenzie Milton? And the fan base wants Mackenzie Milton because he gave him that late spark against the Fighting Irish, your Fighting Irish, Ed, who almost squandered that lead, but they held on and got it done in overtime. So it's an interesting situation there for Ricky Ronnie, depending on whether Mac plays great today or not so well. People come in from an AAC school, played against a big bowl team in LSU, so you figure that pedigree will help him as they move into this. A couple more before we let you run. As you look at big picture for the ODU beyond today with Hampton, what's the game or a couple of games, be it home or on the road, that you're most interested to see how ODU matches up with them on the football field?
So the rest of the non-conference schedule next week, next week at Liberty, Buffalo comes in the week after that. Kevin Marks and those guys, and then
Mac's teammate at Norview,
yeah, Kevin Marks and Cameron LeBourne.
Oh, that's right, he played with him as well there, yeah.
And then the conference game, I think FAU's game, the one at home. I think that's gonna be a big game for him. But if you can steal a win against Buffalo, you can beat Hampton today, compete with Liberty. It could be looking pretty good. I mean, you could see a 3-1 ODU team.
Well, even a 2-2. Even if you only split those 2, assuming you got the win today, 2-2 is better than what it was at the end of 2019, which was just 1 in the cookie jar in the win column. So, as you look at Conference USA, who do you think is the team to beat? Who is the best team in the league right now? Would you go Marshall? Would you go somewhere else?
I go Florida Atlantic.
You do go Florida Atlantic. Okay.
Florida Atlantic looks really good. They have more than one option at quarterback. Great coach, Willie Taggart. And I think it's going to be really tough.
Okay.
I see ODU beating FIU. I see them beating UTEP. I could see a 4 or 5 win team easily this year.
Which is progress and a step in the right direction.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when you're talking about schedule, wow, you said Liberty, then Buffalo, and I'm thinking, well, they're not playing no cupcakes.
Now, Liberty obviously is a team thinking top 25 again, right?
Yes, Liberty is up there, and Buffalo's a hard-headed team to have to go against. And then you jump right into league play. Like you say, there's some gimmies. You would hope there's some gimmies in league play, but then again, there's some tough teams. But you got to do what it takes to compete against whoever is the best. That's how you have to look at it. I'm sitting here thinking too, Reese, of all this kind of goes off the board on questions. You see all the movement around. We just this the other day. BYU, Houston, Central Florida, and I'm missing somebody, were invited to the Big 12.
Yeah, let's hit on that for a minute.
Now, you know what my next question is going to be. When are we going to start hearing teams from Cincinnati? There you go. And possibly Boise and Memphis.
Well, the list here is Cincinnati, Houston, BYU, and UCF have been approved.
Now, Conference USA, their name's going to come up here pretty soon. Some teams being wanted. Maybe the AAC goes after some of these teams now to replace those teams they're going to lose. Do you feel, ear to the ground, some rumblings, or you think, what do you think may happen?
So I had a conversation with Wake Forest fan about this very subject, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago. How they're in the ACC and how ODU aspires to be in a Power 5 conference one day. I don't think it's going to happen this time. I could see AAC, maybe Sun Belt. I don't know if they really fit the footprint of the Sun Belt. But what you have at ODU is, much like Coastal Carolina, who's on the screen behind us actually, you have a resort destination, Virginia Beach. You have the infrastructure of the hotels, and you have a TV market, the Richmond, D.C. wider area. What you could see is ODU build something like a Coastal Carolina, having the Virginia Beach infrastructure here, having it be a vacation spot. More people come to the stadium because they're vacationing here. The TV ratings go up because those people leave and see ODU. And see, that was a team I saw when I was on vacation in Virginia Beach. Let me see how they're doing. That draws fans in. The more fans you have, the more likely are, get the ACC offer. So I could see Sunbelt, AAC. I could see him saying Conference USA. I mean, I don't think Conference USA is too bad for him. The closest team is Charlotte, Marshall, but it's a long trip for basketball to Frisco, for baseball,
right.
All those things. And I'd go AAC if they had to.
See, I thought when this all started, I thought Old Dominion going Conference USA was not a good move because of some of the crazy travels. Back in the day when Old Dominion was in the Sun Belt, of course, they didn't really have the football at that time. A lot of people didn't like that because they wouldn't have a lot of natural basketball rivalries. Colonial was the best when it came to basketball, but everything is football driven. And you make a great point. When these conferences look for teams, yes, they want strong traditional team. The SEC wants a Clemson, wants Ohio State, wants an Oklahoma, Texas. Now, when teams jump, schools jump, and people look for replacements, they're right. I heard the AAC is looking at Georgia State because of Atlanta. UAB because of Birmingham, Alabama is a football crazy area. A lot of talent there. You're right. If a place has something to offer other than just the team, especially if they're not a traditional power, then conferences will look to that. Somebody like an Old Dominion, we'd have to present this as being a resort area. That people, they want to come here not just for football, but there's some other things there. Charlotte, though not a great destination, it's a good city. It's a business city, but it's also looked upon by some of the smaller conferences because their football program is growing. They got a coach that's probably going to not be there long. People are going to want him. Same with Coastal Carolina. They're winning, and most of those coaches are never going to stay there long because big boys come in and can pay more money. That's what's going to happen, and people know that. But I do think that this movement from Big 12, SEC is going to vibrate all the way down, and you're going to see Conference USA, AAC have a lot of movement.
Ed, let me ask you and Matt this question. When you think of AAC, what's the first TV network you think of?
Well, I think it's similar to a lot of what we're dealing with Conference USA. I don't think of any. I think it's kind of scattered. I think of CBS Sports Network at times. I think of, there's been, obviously, CUSA's had some deals with Stadium. They've had occasionally ESPN2 game, but it's kind of that same, uncertainty. And we put up our poll question, and Ed will give a response to that, Reese, as well. It's, if ODU was to leave Conference USA, what would be their best fit? And you can find it on 757 Sports Talk on Twitter. And right now, our audience says 51.2% AAC, followed by the Sun Belt at 30.2%, which to me would be a step backwards. They were once upon a time in the Sun Belt, Ed. Independent at 11.6%, which I'm almost in favor of from this regard. If you can go independent for a football and you can go Atlantic 10 or something for basketball, it gives you a lot more schedule, a flexibility, and logistically you can maybe play the Liberty, East Carolina, Navy, Army, James Madison type of schedule, throw in a Norfolk State, a Hampton, add an occasional ACC, a Tech, UVA, Wake Forest, whoever. That might have some while this whole conference realignment puzzle gets figured out, and the other choice is other, which is at 7% right now on the list. So AAC and Sunbelt are over independent and other for the time being. But I don't know that necessarily there's a great fit out there at the moment, whether you're talking about AAC, Sunbelt, even independent, MAC, you name it, because right now there's so much we don't know. But I do agree with you, Ed, that these latest dominoes, more so than the Big 12, SEC dominoes with Texas, Oklahoma, will precipitate something having to happen and change here.
Now, it's interesting to listen to the poll question. To me, the AAC is the only choice. Sun Belt's not going to work. Okay, Matt, come on. How many are going to get excited about playing? We're going to Western Michigan. Central Michigan is coming here.
But Ed, it's a twofer thing. It's two parts of this. Does the AAC want ODU? Does ODU want the AAC? You have to have both pieces align with whatever conference situation occurs.
And respect to what Reese said, that area has to offer something. If you're not, like, if somebody wanted Alabama, they don't care where they're at. Right. It's Alabama, University of Alabama. We want them. That's Nick Saban and the boys. We got to get them. But when you start dropping down to a team like an Old Dominion, who's not traditionally strong in football, okay, what else do they bring? Do they travel well with fans? Well, if we're coming there, what else are we seeing? What else can we do if we want to come back later, stay an extra day or two? So a lot of that you have to look at. Old Dominion Independent will never have. That's Death Valley.
Well, it happened at Liberty.
Well, you cannot be an independent in football and expect to play on the big boys.
But they're not playing on the big boys stage in essence at the moment anyways.
Well, because a lot of the big conferences are tied into all the bowls.
Right.
So to go as an independent, you pretty much have to win every game. You're going to have to play some powerhouses and beat them to be recognized in the top 5 or 6 to go to a big bowl to get into the playoffs to win the championship. If you don't, you can go 11-0. You're not going anywhere. It's not going to happen. Cincinnati, South Florida was at Central Florida. It's already proven that. And they were in conferences. They weren't hardly even looked at by people. Boise State over the years used to be an 11-win team every year. And when it came playoff time, people would say, yeah, but they don't play anybody. They're out west. We don't even know who they're playing, blah, blah. They play on a blue field. What the heck? Nobody put them in respect with SEC, Big Ten, Pac-10 type teams. They just didn't do it. And it's almost like if you want to be good in football, you've got to go Big Ten, SEC, and somebody like Old Dominion never will happen.
That's not an option. And
it's not an option.
If you ask half of the East Coast population what conference Boise State is, I bet they give you a split answer whether it's the WAC or Mountain West. Oh, by the way, the WAC is long. That's my point. So I don't know that conference affiliation is necessarily going. We don't know at this point. There's a lot of we don't know at this moment. But
no, and the AAC is also going to potentially go after Boise State if
other teams,
the Big 12 doesn't get
the
it.
geography's out the window with what their latest move is. We got to go to break here in a second, but Reese, give us a final thought here before we go to break.
Final thought is conference realignment. Ed, think of how much money Liberty has. And for the AAC, think about East Carolina. ODU has no true rival. East Carolina every year would instantly build that rivalry.
No question they should. No question they should. I always said back in the day, East Carolina would be a perfect fit. I'm looking at basketball. Sure. Colonial. All those teams would be perfect fit.
Listen, I'm not saying AAC is a bad necessarily, but again, you have to have two parts of the dance partner thing to work.
You really do. You have to have some built-in natural rivalries. I've always said it. I like conference setup when it's national rivalry, geographic rivalries. That's what I like.
We got to go to break. We'll come back with more here from Waterside Live. Thank you, Reese Becker, for joining us. We got more to do here. It's ESPN Radio 94.1.
This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk with Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Coming to you from Waterside Live here on this 11th day of September, the year 2021. It is another edition of 757 Saturday Sports Talk powered by Larry King Law. If you're injured in an accident, you call 757-INJURED for Larry King. With the Coach Ed Young, I am Matt Hatfield. We thank Reese Becker for stopping by, DullisDistrict.com and VirginiaPreps.com. Talk a little Old Dominion with us and some high school football as well. Dino Franza back in our Virginia Beach studios. We got our NFL picks week number 1 coming up in just a bit. But, Ed, going back to a little bit of our conference discussion we had with Reese, and I see our man Greg Medea from the Daily News Record did a story about James Madison. With multiple Group of 5 leagues open to expansion, the opportunity for JMU to make the move from FCS to FBS could be nearing. Now, sources tell Mr. Medea, who we've had on this show before, that the exit fee to leave the CAA, the Colonial, is $1 million plus another $250,000 for football. And this also brings me to a story that his colleague Shane Metlin did about, maybe 4 weeks ago or so, where the headline read, "Politics in other states could shape JMU's conference future." And he actually spoke with Old Dominion Athletic Director Dr. Wood Seelig, where he gave Shane the quote, "You have to ask yourself, why do 3 group of 5 conferences have 3 almost identical footprints. You don't see that among the Power 5, speaking of the Sun Belt, Conference USA, and the American Athletic Conference. Can you get some of these teams to join forces, kind of like the alliance that the ACC is in hopes of building with the Pac-12 and Big Ten? And your thoughts, though, as we bring into the conversation a little bit of JMU, and it's been brought up for many, many years. My dad's a JMU alum, and there's a lot in the area. When are they going to make that move from FCS to FBS? Is the time the best it's ever been, or do you say, no, it could create maybe not the type of success we've seen JMU have, and it might not be the good that you initially think it is, given where they are?
Well, it's true. They've been football-wise, been very successful at that level. Played in the national championship game, won one.
They've won a couple.
Okay,
yeah.
won a couple.
Yeah.
When are you ever going to be harder than them to make a move up? Old Dominion a few years back was doing pretty well, and then all of a sudden, boom, they moved up. At the time, I personally thought they moved up too quick. They hadn't won no national title at that level. Hadn't even been in a national title game at that level. So if you're going to move up, number one, success on the field is important. And unfortunately, it has to be zeroed in as, are you playing for a national championship at that level? Can't just be good. We average 10 wins a year. When you're going to make a move up, because it is a move up, you have to show more. And to me, that means some big-time championships. Now, you also brought up the other point, conference buyouts. This is what people don't understand. The ACC, if I'm not mistaken, has a ridiculous, crazy buyout.
Yeah.
That $20 million or something for a school to leave.
You don't just snap your fingers and say, I'm going from the ACC to
no,
the SEC or wherever.
There's more to it.
Right.
There is, and it technically, I haven't heard this, but I bet you if a conference enforced it, they would. It could be legal matters too.
Well, this line here from Shane in his recent article, Wood Seeley is in an interesting position. He and other ODU employees seem careful not to oversell the potential of JMU football. The Monarchs and Dukes recruit the same athletes after all, but existing in an FBS conference with JMU would help solve a lot of the financial issues his department has faced. He can dream of bringing AAC members East Carolina and Temple to the table, but a league that includes the likes of JMU, Marshall, Charlotte, and Appalachian State is much more attainable at this point. That's if politicians in faraway states don't put a stop to serious negotiations before they even begin. So there's a lot of other moving pieces that you can't even really put a finger on how
really,
it's going to
Matt, you're right. There's so many other pieces that we don't really know or see. And really the bottom line on everything is money-driven.
Money in politics, yep.
Period. Money.
Roll around.
Because
sometimes not always for the best.
If we take you in, a conference, if I take you in, does it make our conference money? It's the same thing in a business world. When you go for a job, if you're going to get hired, the person interviewing you is thinking, if I hire this person, are they going to make us better? Are they going to make us more money? That's the main reason you bring somebody in. You bring in a team in. You can't just bring a team in and say, oh, we have this school, you'll be a natural rival for them. That's not what they're looking at. We might look at that, but that's not what they're looking at. It's a situation where, can this school bring us in money? Do they travel well? They have a great following. That's really what it comes down to. It's all about money.
Well, also, before we go to break here, I want to tell you about our question of the day. We told you about the poll question. Question of the day, which NFL underdog for Week 1 has the best chance to not only cover the point spread, but win outright? I would tell you my Cardinals might be that team, Ed.
Against who they playing?
Tennessee Titans with Julio
No
Jones
chance.
again. Come on. Well,
Cardinals
we'll find
have a 1 in 10 chance of winning.
That's wrong. We'll find out if Dino is going with them or somebody else in his
Dino's Dogs.
When we come back, it's the Pick 3 NFL selections with yours truly, the coach Ed Young and Dino, back in our Virginia Beach studios to wrap up this edition of 757 Saturday Sports Talk from Waterside Live on the coach's favorite radio station. What is it?
Without doubt, that's the number one radio station in the land, definitely state of Virginia, ESPN Radio 94.1.
This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk with Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young on ESPN Radio 94.1.
All right, we are back here from Waterside Live in Norfolk, and don't forget when we are done, come on by now, and we've got all kinds of giveaways, including Orioles tickets, Tides tickets, you name it. Come on out here to Waterside Live. We might even play some trivia and have some fun for you here on ESPN Radio 94.1. And Dino Franza will fire it up the NFL music as we got our pick 3 selections here for week number 1 in the league where they play for pay. And just to refresh people's memories, yours truly, Mr. Matt Hatfield, 63.3% a season ago at 31-18-2. This is against the point spread, using the over-unders as well. Did not have a losing week on the board until week number 9 last year, as I started out 18-4-2, 82%. Ed, on the other hand, did not quite find the same level of success, but he's going to argue that, hey, playoff time is when he's ready to perform, and he does beat me in that usually. He finished up 23-28 under the 500 mark, while our man Dino Franza will go first today with his Dino Dog. Woof, woof. He was 9-8 a season ago, winning 5 consecutive late in the regular season, and also did well in the playoffs. So, Dino, I'm going to let you go first so that Ed does not steal your dog. He'll have to copycat you and not go first over you. Give us your underdog to cover and perhaps even win outright in week number 1.
All right, Dino's dog for the week. Well, everybody's talking about how good the Buffalo Bills are, and they are very good. They're playing at home, and they are giving the visiting Pittsburgh Steelers, which, by the way, not chopped liver, giving the Steelers 6.5 points. I like Pittsburgh on the road covering this game.
Wow, so you go with the 7'5" native Mike Tomlin out of William & Mary Denby High School in Newport News, and the Steelers to cover to 6.5. Not going to quite go all the way out there and say they win the game outright with the big upset?
It's a possibility, of course. I think Buffalo probably wins the game, but I think Pittsburgh's going to cover that 6.5. They're a very good team as well.
That'll make our man Richie Somerville, a Steelers fan, very happy to hear you picking his Pittsburgh Steelers. Then he'll just blame you later if you get it wrong. You can blame me, Dino, if I get this one wrong, because you are a Bears fan, and I am going against Chicago. Andy Dalton, I think Justin Fields will be in this game at some point. I'm going with the Rams Sunday Night Football with that defense, with Aaron Donald, Mr. Ramsey, the whole crew, Matthew Stafford, his debut in prime time. I know Chicago's defense is pretty respectable, but I don't think they can match them. Big play and big score. I'm going with the Rams to win this one, something like 27-10. I like the 7.5. I'll take it. 2 touchdowns. Give me the Rams with my pick number 1 here at laying the 7.5. So, Ed, you get the next 2. I'm going with the Rams, which I see on NFL Network. They're going across the board with a sweep on their morning show as well with L.A. to get the W. What do you got, Ed?
Okay, I like that pick for you. Fields will not be in that game. He will not play.
They're down 4 touchdowns, he will.
He will not be in the game, period. Once again, they stick with their main guy. That's how the NFL does it. Fields will come in, I think, game 3 or 4. Trust me. You're not going to start a rookie quarterback and then pull him. You'll start a veteran. It's easier to pull the veteran. So I don't know why everybody's worried about all these rookies.
Well, if Aaron Donald lands on him the wrong way, Fields might be in the game.
I'm going to do something in my picks, if you don't steal any. Never been done before. Totally unheard of.
Oh, boy, this is dangerous.
Okay. I'm going with Denver at the Giants. Giants are getting 3. I'm going Denver.
So you like Denver -3 for your first pick. We don't have a lot of time, but any quick reasoning on why you like the Broncos here?
I thought it would be Giants +7. Give the Giants 7. They're only giving them 3. Okay. Denver's 14 points easy, better than the Giants.
So you're more squeamish on the Giants if Saquon's healthy at offensive line than you are Denver being so good.
Denver being so good, because I don't think Denver's that good.
Okay. What's your second choice? I think you were going to go like a parlay or a teaser or something.
This is a parlay.
Oh, boy.
A trifecta. I'm doing a trifecta today.
Well, it's a 3-leg parlay.
Green Bay at New Orleans. New Orleans is getting 3.5. Green Bay will win by 21.
By 21?
Yes.
So we're going to give it to you at -20.5, or do you want it at 3.5?
No, I'm doing a 3.5. No, Dino, write it down.
Okay.
This guy's always trying to get me to lose.
Green Bay by 21, and the game is not in New Orleans, by the way. It's technically against New Orleans because they've moved that game with all the. So interesting.
Right.
I believe it's
with all the things happening in New Orleans, that's going to hurt them too.
All right. So you think Jameis Winston?
I can't give you my third one because you got to get the next 2.
Yeah, don't do that. All right. So I got 2. Ed goes Packers -3.5, Broncos -3. I took the Rams -7.5. Dino's dog was Pittsburgh +6.5. It's the pick 3 selections with the upset special 2 here on NFL Week 1 Saturday here, a day before the games kick off tomorrow here on ESPN Radio 94.1 as we talk to you from Waterside Live in Norfolk. All right, where do I go for my next two and ultimately last two selections? I really thought hard about the Minnesota Vikings, but I'm going to make Randy a happy camper. I'm going with his Kansas City Chiefs to get it done, the reigning two-time AFC champions with Ocean Lakes grad Derek Nottie, and, of course, they got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and the boys. Laying 5.5. That's it. Only 5.5 against the Cleveland Browns. I know the Browns are improved. They got Baker Mayfield, Chubb, the whole bit. Odell's back from injury. Casey has something to prove from that Super Bowl loss, and I think they will lay it on the Browns by at least 2 scores, maybe at least 2 touchdowns. Give me KC minus 5.5, as I got two teams that once were in the same state of Missouri. Obviously, the Rams moved from St. Louis to L.A., but I'm going with the Missouri team in Kansas City. The Chiefs laying the 5.5, and I'm going to go to the over-under. This got me in trouble last year, Ed.
I know. You like to play with the over and under.
I do, and this could keep me from a 3-0 week or even a winning week. It could force me to go 0-3 even if things go haywire. I looked hard at this one, and I liked it when it was at 44.5, but it's technically I'm showing 45.5 unless Dino can show me a line that has it lower. I'm going to go over 45.5 for Jacksonville and Houston. And the reason being, I know these offenses could be inconsistent. You got Tyrod Taylor, the Hampton High grad, and Virginia Tech Hokie against Trevor Lawrence in the debut, but I think these defenses are terrible, and this game screams to me 31-28, 28-27, 35-31. I told you Jacksonville's going to be a lot of overs. Give me over 45.5 for Jags Texans.
All right, Matt.
Rams minus 7.5 and Chiefs minus 5.5.
Matt, I guess we can give you that 45.5, but it actually has gone up now to 46.5.
Has it really?
It has.
Wow, I'm throwing it out in FanDuel at 45.
Hold it. I have to give the approval because he's going against me too.
Well, this is the scores. This is the scores and odds website.
Oh man!
But you know what? I have 45.5, so I'll give it to him.
All right, thank you. All right. What do you got, Ed?
And my third one, another.
It was 44.5, so people have been betting it, by the way. Go ahead.
Another road team, San Francisco at Detroit. Detroit's getting 8.5, which is the highest on the week. They're getting the most points of anybody.
You like the Lions, right?
But I'm going with San Francisco to beat them by at least 12.
So Ed's going with 3 favorites, Niners, Packers, Broncos. I'm going with 2 favorites, Rams and Chiefs, plus the over. They generously gave it to me at 45.5 for Jags and Texans, while Dino has the Steelers as his dog. And that'll do it for this edition of 757 Saturday Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1 from Waterside Live. We thank Reese Becker. We thank Al and Derek and Dino back in our Virginia Beach studios. I am Matt Hatfield. You, sir, are?
I'm the coach, for now, Ed Young.
And we're here until 2 o'clock today. We've got free Langley Speedway tickets, Tides tickets, Orioles tickets. Come on out. College football and lots of fun here from Waterside Live. And we'll do it again next week on ESPN Radio 94.1.